All right, welcome to Meeting of the Minds. We got Coach Andy here with us today. So thank you for joining us. And start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and then about the program that you're coaching now.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. I enjoy stuff like this and appreciate the opportunity. I grew up in a town called Widnes, back in England, very, very close to Liverpool. Played soccer my whole life. It's kind of a way of life back there. Um, Ended up coming to America after I'd graduated from university in Staff's University. And started coaching, just doing youth soccer camps, things like that, like a lot of English guys did back then in the early 2000s, and fell in love with coaching. Found my way to Texas, involved in the youth game for about 12 to 15 years, in and out of the youth game, but always had a real strong ambition to be involved at the collegiate level. I was lucky enough to do that at Houston Tillotson, which is downtown Austin. And from then on, I've been on a bit of a journey, and recently just got the Concordia University head women's job. Again, it's here in Austin, which is a dream come true for me. There's not many programs in Austin, and most of my friends and family are here. So, to be a head coach in Austin is a fantastic opportunity for me. So I'm relishing in it.
Yeah, no, well, congratulations on that. It's always great when plans come together, right?
Yeah, it never quite works out exactly how you think, but if you keep your eye on the prize, I guess good things can happen.
That's very true. So obviously you've coached at all levels. You grew up playing soccer over in Europe and the United Kingdom. Do you notice any differences in like the mental side of sports from Europe, to the United States?
That's a tough one for me to answer if I'm honest, because I spent most of my life in the US. I grew up in England, and as a player, I didn't overthink anything. Growing up in that environment, growing up in that kind of culture, like I said earlier, it's just a kind of way of life. And, most people, played or were involved in football, or, you support a team, and it was just something that you did. And I played at a semi-pro level, so I didn't get as far as I would have liked, but I did it for the love of it. And I did it with some good players, but I didn't reach the top, so I never overthought it, and I never started coaching and being involved in things at that level when I was in the UK. It wasn't until I got to the US and started coaching and really becoming engulfed in the game and teaching the game and being part of something that coaching became important. But I would say that when I go back to the UK, it's certainly it's becoming more and more geared towards the development, and there's definitely a pressure there, and the academies in the professional clubs are growing, and there's a lot more kind of opportunity, to get involved in bigger clubs now for the young players. It's just a different setup to the US, I guess.
Right. All right. Well, very interesting. So for you as a coach, you've coached at different levels. Do you find that mentally the same things are a struggle for the youth players as high school players or college players, or is there a big difference at the different levels in the mental struggles that athletes face?
I think at the youth level, I come back to that kind of that winning pressure is very it's very existent with the kids here, and I don't know. It comes mostly from maybe the parents of the clubs, the kind of we have to win mentality, which as a coach, we're all only interested in developing people and creating well-rounded young kids who can enjoy the game and love the game and hopefully win along the way, but it can't be the be all and end all. And that's some kids you can see can struggle at times. You don't know what mum and dad are saying at times when they get them in the minivan after the game, or after training. When you get higher up to older ages and into the collegiate game, I think that the athletes can maybe focus on things that they can't control a little bit. They might have, there's lots of struggles in life. There's lots of things that you're trying to juggle and balance. And when you get to the nitty gritty of any issue, it's usually, well, what can you do about that? What should you focus on? And, whether it's off the field, on the field, in the classroom, I think usually those things come down to what you can and can't control.
Right. Yeah. And one of our main concepts that we try to approach sports with is what we call predator mindset, which is exactly what you're verbalizing right there, which is, a successful athlete has to be able to see what I can control, what can I, and I'm basically going to do my very best to totally take the stuff I can't control off the table. Just not going to spend any mental energy and time focused on it, because if there's no impact I could have on it, all I'm doing is draining myself mentally. Exactly. It would be like making a pointless run, in soccer. And obviously there's times that you have to take that risk of I'm going to make this run. Maybe that draws attention from, the other player, maybe I need to give them another option. But if I'm just pointlessly doing a bunch of physical activity, it's just burning that endurance down. And, by the end of the game, if I'm doing that constantly, which is, I think, what a lot of athletes struggle with, is that they're constantly focused on things they can't control. By the end of the game, they're just mentally, they can't focus anymore. They've just burnt through all that mental energy.
I would agree 100% there.
So for yourself, do you have a strong focus on the mental aspect of sports, at practice and in that development that you're trying to have with your team?
I was listening to one of your webinars recently, and something stuck in my mind. It was I'm not one for statistics and putting numbers on things and things like that, but it was a question that was asked about, when you ask a coach of a sport such as soccer, what's the most important things about the game and competing, someone threw out an answer of it. It's 90% mental. It's 90% in your head, the psychology, your mindset, your approach. But do we do training that's 90% mental training? That stuck in my mind. I definitely have techniques that I do and I use and I stick to with regards to how I design a training practice, a training session on the field. I'm a firm believer in constraint-led coaching, conditioned practices that reflect exactly what you're going to go through in competition. But the mental side of things, I tend to do it in seminar type scenarios. I like to hear from the players. I like to ask questions to the group, small groups. I want them to tell me how they think about things and how they would approach things on their own in small groups as a team, so that they kind of answer the questions themselves and give me the answers that I know are important. But going back to my original point, to hear that 90% of the game is mental, I would agree with that, to be honest, to a certain extent. Obviously, there's no absolutes.
Right.
But it made me think more about, I need to do more. I'd like to do more. I'd like to find out new ways to reach out to our players, to our athletes, and give them more opportunity to grow a mental toughness, if you like, to think about things more on that level. I think it's really important. But doing things like this, for instance.
Yeah, no. And that engagement, I think it's one of the things we pride ourselves on is, in our training that when we work with teams, individuals, it's much less of just, talking at, which I look at motivational speaking has its place. It's an important thing. But I think where it misses the boat is the fact that it's very, from me to you. And if all we're doing is trying to motivate by speaking, all I'm doing is, putting something out there and hopefully they're going to pick it up and then do something with it. I think mental training is much more effective when it changes those behaviors. It changes practices. And I think one of the great ways to do that is get that engagement back and forth. It's not, this is how I look at the situation, you should take that. It's more of well, how would you think about this? Where have you struggled there? And by getting that back and forth with that raised engagement, I think it's definitely a strong way to, begin that improvement on that mental piece.
Absolutely. I always think back to, as a player, what did I respond to? What type of communication, worked with me, and that kind of dictatorship, my way or the highway. This is how it's going to be. That's not. That doesn't work with many people, I don't think. There's a word I use with our group, and I used it day one when I interviewed. The team interviewed me. It was part of the interview process, which I thought was awesome, to be honest. A little nerve-wracking sitting in front of 20 girls, wondering what they're going to come up with. But I use the word ownership. This is not my team. Like, I'm not coming here to tell you exactly how we're going to do this. It's going to be a team effort. Like, I want them to have an ownership of where we go. I'm going to drive the bus, okay, and I'm going to have ideas, and I'm going to outwork everybody. But I want to hear from everybody in that room. I want to know what you're planning to do, how you want to do it, and together we'll come up with ways to improve on every level. And I guess that word ownership is huge, because if someone gives you something and gives you control of something and lets you have a say and an involvement in it, then surely you feel value. You feel valued. You know what I mean? You can actually say, you know what, I'm going to do the extra work. That's kind of the way I think about things.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's just, I kind of think about it like, that teenager that gets the car. If that teenager had to work over the summer and save up their money, and they get the car and they got to do some of the maintenance on it, they got to do some of the work on it, how they're going to treat that is going to be very different than if it's just given to them straight up, right? And I think when we as leaders can bring in that ownership where, this is not just, my team, this is not just what I say, this is about us as the group, all contribute, all have a say. I think it's way easier to get the buy-in that we're all looking for. And what I'm always trying to look and help create, and that's the way that we see ourselves as mindset coaches, just kind of like a strength coach, but for the mental side. We're not, we want to be part of that staff. We have a very specific role that we're going to come in and play, but we want to be, part of that team, part of that family. Is create that team culture and help be part of that team culture where everybody's doing the right things, not because somebody's saying they should, but because everybody wants to. Everybody feels that full buy-in. And when you get that team culture, that starts to create that self-driving force that leads to success after success after success for the program.
Mm-hmm.
So for you as a coach, what are some of the philosophies that you bring to the table that help create that strong team culture and is going to continue to create success at Concordia?
I mean, philosophy. I thought about philosophies a lot growing up as a coach. It's kind of a word. It doesn't sit with me. The word philosophy. I tried to write one once, thinking it would look good on the resume, and it ended up. There's too many things in my mind, to be honest. To get it all down there. To me, it's about people. It comes down to who's around. Have I got the right people around, not just on the playing side of things with the athletes, but the coaches, and what type of people are they? Are they hardworking? Are they humble? Do they communicate well? I think number one, if I have the right people around, then that culture that you just talked about starts to develop straight away. I go back to the word ownership. Once you have the people, then give them something, to grab hold of, to feel part of. And inclusion's another massive thing for me. With soccer, we're going to have a roster of 29 this coming year, which is fantastic. There's only 11 on the field, but I want every single one of those 29 to feel included and to feel valued. And I have to find ways to do that. There's no separation. Training sessions involve everybody. Team meetings involve everybody, mostly, unless we're working in smaller groups for specific reasons. Again, philosophy-wise, can I outwork everybody and think beyond everybody and kind of lead by example in that way so that they get that bug, they follow suit? Can I include them all in everything as much as possible so they feel valued? Can I give them a chance to show it? Right? You don't want to be just a number in a group. You know, we all know who's performing at a higher level right now, who are the so-called better players. You know, we all know that, but it doesn't mean that you can't add value to this group and bring something and contribute. And I think, you know, that word you use is culture, and I bring it around to people. If you've got the right people, then you'll have that culture. And if you do the right things consistently well, and if you're always thinking of new ways to do the same things, if you like, you know, then it'll brew and it'll grow and it'll, you know, we're right at the beginning here at Concordia. You know, I've been here a year and already I'm really excited about how everything's been kind of approached by the players, and I can feel that belief that's kind of brewing in there.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've been reading Good to Great, which is about, you know, businesses that have become successful and outperformed competitors. And one of the things they talk about with leadership in it is it's not just knowing the right direction. It's about knowing, it's about building the right team around you. And then if you have the right team, you can do whatever you want. Right?
Exactly.
You know, and I think that's a great message. You know, and so having that right team, what are some of the qualities you look for in players? You know, let's say focus on the mental side, because you could take that question a whole bunch of directions. But mentally, when you look at recruiting, what are some of the qualities you're looking for in the athletes that you want to bring into the Concordia family?
Well, obviously, when you go watching players, you're looking at how they play. The first thing, you know, there's going to be a certain standard, a certain level of play, you know, without doubt. If you're going to, let's not kid ourselves. We can talk about all this stuff to create a successful program and win on the field. You're going to need to have good players. But, you know, I'm a firm believer that you don't have to have superstars. You don't have to have the greatest players in the world to win. You've got to have the right people. And I watch how people behave on the field. I watch more when they don't have the ball than when they do. I watch off the ball. What's their movement like? What's the communication like? What's their body language like? There's a quote I read, you know, recently, something about we can all talk, but your body language screams. You know, it's a good one. That's not exactly how it was, but it's a quote very similar to that. You know, how do you carry yourself on the field, and how are you received by your teammates? It's important because that tells me the type of person you are. How do you react to, you know, a call that goes against you or a bit of adversity in the game? Are you winning? Are you losing? What are you doing? How are you doing it? You know, I very much like to watch players away from the actual game to see, you know, because we all know that you're going to come up. It's a roller coaster. We know that it's going to be ups and downs in a collegiate season, and how you cope with the so-called downs is what really defines you as a player and your team. So from a playing perspective, that's what I look for. You know, are those players positive? Do they have that body language? You know, do they give off a good vibe? As soon as I get them off the field and get them on campus and get a chance to meet them and their families, I ask them questions like, do you enjoy playing? Do you enjoy training? You know, do you enjoy getting better? What are your goals? What are your ambitions? What, you know, I want to know more about the person, the character, than specific soccer things. You know, that's I'm all about people, I guess. If I know that I can connect with somebody, if I get a feeling from somebody as far as the type of person that they are and what they want to achieve, you know, I feel strongly that they'll enjoy being in our program and being part of, you know, the journey that we're on to reach our goals. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I would agree. You know, I was reading *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari. Have you ever heard of him? Or
I haven't.
It's really interesting, where he tries to look at like what has allowed, you know, humans, you know, Homo sapiens to be successful, you know, compared to other animals. And one of the things that he talks about is this ability to jointly do projects, right? What separates us from almost any other species? even other primates, is we can organize ourselves in groups that are larger than 50 or 150, which is kind of like typically about the size of like, a chimpanzee group. And, through those relationships, through those abilities to connect, we can achieve much larger goals than any individual could. And I think, using that as part of the basis for recruiting and trying to build your team, I think is a huge part of any team that is successful. So, now for you as a coach, kind of coming to these conceptions and finding, what you think works and, what you've kind of built your, philosophies, I guess is the word that I typically use, even if maybe it's more of a collection of independent practices.
Yeah.
Who were some of the people that influenced you, as a coach and in your conceptions of, how to build a great soccer culture?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm very much more of a watcher. I like to, that rather than going out and speaking about things myself. I really do enjoy watching coaches, and I actually believe that you can learn from everybody. Like, and that sounds a little vague, but you can learn what to do, maybe what not to do when you watch a coach. Specifically, there's been some leaders, through the youth game at clubs that I've been involved in. Sean Bubb, Don Cameron, Rob Ferguson, who all have qualities different to each other, leadership qualities, whether it's a work ethic, whether it's attention to detail, whether it's a calmness, just personalities. There's definitely things that you can pick up from coaches, no matter what the level, no matter, who they are, for sure. On the professional ranks, David Moyes, who maybe his best years are behind him, maybe not. He's in the Premier League right now with West Ham, but he took over the club that I grew up supporting, Everton, in the Premier League. And, when I was early to mid-20s, I reached out to him. He was just started at Everton, and I reached out. I just wrote a letter. I was here in America. I was in Austin, and I knew I was going home at Christmas. I wrote to him, and I said, look, I'm coming back to the UK for a few weeks. Can I come and watch training? And I didn't expect anything, to be honest, but I got a phone call. Said, yeah, let us know when you come in, and we'll set it up for you. And that was unbelievable. So I went. That's what I mean. He basically changed the culture within Everton. He brought a new energy to Everton. He had a work ethic that was. He was a young guy. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew how he wanted to achieve it. It was a massive club for him to do it at, and he, put us back on the map, if you like, as far as being in the Premier League. I didn't win anything, but we progressed to a certain level where pride was reinstalled in the club, if you like. So people like that, who just stick out in my mind. People who've influenced me, for sure.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a great story. And I think too many people are hesitant, to reach out and ask, for opportunities like that. And like anybody that wants to be successful, and I mean, this goes way deeper than just coaching or soccer or, sports. There are a million resources out there, but most people don't seek them out. And, that's one of those things that separates those that end up being successful from those not. Is like, do you make the request? Do you ask the question? Do you try to put yourself in that situation?
Yeah.
Which I think sports, has been a big piece in my life that has helped me do that. And for me, sports have been, very significant. Obviously, the whole career I'm in has been based around it. For you, what are some of the lessons that you got out of soccer that have, helped kind of drive you as an individual?
I mean, it's such an amazing experience. Again, I think back to my playing days, and I never overthought it. I was lucky enough to play at a very good level. Again, I didn't make it to the level that I would have liked. I know why now. And it helps me. It probably helps me as a coach to think about things on a different level as a coach. What were my shortcomings as a player? yeah, I maybe wasn't tough enough. Maybe I thought about things I shouldn't have been thinking about, worried about things I shouldn't have worried about. Because ability-wise, I could hang with most. So I guess that's probably a good answer to the question. I learned as a player growing up, maybe how to be a coach, if you like, and that team. When I got to America and I started to get involved in coaching at different levels through the youth ranks, higher youth ranks, and then into the collegiate game. There's so much involved in soccer that brings quality to the lives of young kids. Just getting them out there, having them enjoying it, being part of something, being with the teammates, that sense of achievement, that being able to make kids feel good about themselves and the direction that they're in. What a lucky thing to be able to do as a coach, and it's why I struggled quite a lot in the youth game and wanted to get into the collegiate game, because unfortunately for me, I found a lot of external negative influences on the youth game. It seems, these kids have got a lot of things on their mind where maybe they shouldn't. They should be thinking about just enjoying it, loving the game, loving their coach and their teammates. And then if we win on Saturday, we win on Saturday, and if you don't, then there's things you can learn from it. And, important things you can learn from it that you can take. It's not just a game of soccer, it's things you can learn in life. So, the collegiate game allows me to control the environment a little bit more, I guess, and create that culture that you can, have the players involved in.
Yeah, well, and those external factors, whether they be parents, whether they be, coaches, whether they be society in general, or communities in general. What would be some of your recommendations for young players? And young is somewhat vague, but like for players that have committed themselves to becoming good soccer players, which is going to happen at different ages for different people, I'm sure. What are some of the ways that you recommend that they eliminate those external pressures that maybe hold them back or make it more difficult to be successful? Because I would agree with you entirely that pressure is a negative force for many athletes when it comes to being able to progress and improve. Right, that feel that I have to win. If I lose, like I should be afraid of losing. Which we all know as any athletic person, you're going to lose a lot, right? We're going to lose along the way. We're going to make those mistakes. So how would you recommend they try to eliminate some of those external pressures, or at least put those in the spot where they don't affect them as much?
It comes down to, in as many ways as possible, give them that same message of focus on the things that they can control and focus on, themselves. And number one, love it. Like, you have to love doing what you do. And if any of us are forced to do something we don't want to do, we're not going to love it and we're not going to perform. Like, we're just not going to put everything into it. So my number one advice to kids when I see them now, or the things I talk about, are you enjoying it? That's the first thing you enjoy it. Do you enjoy your coach? Do you enjoy your team? Do you love your team? And when they say yeah, I'm like, well, that's half the battle right there. Right? If you can't wait to get to training, if you can't wait to get to your games, if you can't wait to see your coach and your teammates again, then you're winning. Like, you're already a leg up. But if it's a drag, if it's a chore, if you're not sure, then you're not going to give 100%. And that's not just soccer. That's everything that we do. That's people in the work. That's people in their relationships. So, be yourself. Like, don't try to be somebody that you're not. Don't worry about people's perceptions of you too much. That's hard growing up. We all know, we've all been through it. But focus on the things that you're good at and do it to the best of your ability, and try not to, don't be in a rush is just something that I say. Don't be in a panic. Don't be in a rush. Don't try and get from A to B. It's a long journey, and be patient with it,
Yeah, I would agree. We use the language of purpose a lot, we will talk about loving it, or like why you love it, why you enjoy it. But I try to talk to athletes and individuals a lot about your purpose. What is your purpose behind being involved in this sport? Because I think if we always have a strong purpose, in mind, it's easier to be in love and be passionate about what we're doing. And, you know, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a career, whether it's a sport, whether it's a hobby, you know, whether it's a friendship, if we don't see a purpose behind it, that's something that makes us excited to be involved. It's long term. It's going to be hard to be able to dedicate ourselves fully towards it.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the little practices that I try to utilize, and we as a company try to utilize, is, you know, especially in that time of the season when it starts to feel like a grind. You know, you're a couple months in, people are kind of beat up a little bit, some injuries pop up, that pressure is probably starting to rear its ugly head a little bit. Is sit down and write out all the reasons you love what you're doing. You know, because we forget. You know, you get caught up in the day to day, and you forget to think about, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I think we remind ourselves of it, the easier it is for us to stay grateful for it and, you know, drive hard at it.
Yeah, we've thought about something similar. I've got a really good coach who's working. He's a graduate assistant, but he's a top guy, and we've been talking about doing some kind of a reset period when it gets to that kind of draining moment in the year or in the season when you want to refocus, if you like. We called it resetting, and we've got a little bit of a gap in our schedule, and we're thinking about having a really light week, you know, where we're not out there pounding the pavement, if you like, and we're giving them chance to rest and recover. Now that'll be difficult. Given I know what I'm like. I like to be out there. I like to be working. We like to bring energy and enthusiasm. So that will be a little bit outside of my comfort zone. But we're thinking about what are the benefits of this. And like you just said, let's take some time to think about, all right, where are we at? Why are we doing it again? What do we need right now? Okay. And let's give ourselves a little bit of a breather and reset, and then let's hit the rest of the season hard. You know, let's go for it. So, no, it's funny you should say that, because it's something that we've spoke about recently.
Well, there's a lot of us that are trying to figure out that performance equation, figure out the best way to help athletes improve and grow. You know, the way I try to look at it, because I'm the same way. You know, I just want to grind, and I want to grind hard. Yeah. I do it constantly, and sometimes when you do remember that purpose, you realize it's like, at the end of the day, there's a goal in mind. And if the training is not preparing me for that goal, I'm missing the mark. Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the difference between, like, you know, being more scientific with weightlifting versus, like, we're always just going to max out. Like, one is going to give you longer, better results. One in the short term may feel more satisfying, but that doesn't mean it's actually better.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, a lot of good stuff. You know, before we finish, any questions for me, or any just topics that you'd like to dive into?
Oh, I mean, not really. I'm thankful for the opportunity to do this. You know, I'm like most coaches, I'm always scanning around looking for new ideas. And when I stumble across things, I come across, you know, your website a while ago, and I enjoy the podcasts, and I don't listen to it nearly as many as I would like, because there's always something else, you know, going. You see this, you see that. But no, I appreciate everything that you guys do, and it's awesome. I hope you can get something from me. I'm certainly learning from you. Like I said earlier, if I want to find something out, I'll go and seek it. You know, I will reach out, and I'll email you, or the people that are involved in your website I've reached out to a few times to try and get a little bit more information. So, no, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been great.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us, and, you know, sharing a little bit about your program and at Concordia and your philosophies. And we're always looking to grow just like you, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jake.
All right. Well, good luck this season, and I'll talk to you soon.
Likewise. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.